Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Dev Ki Jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, good morning. We're continuing the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj this morning. We are so fortunate to hear about this. This is the end of the interaction between Lord Vishnu and Dhruva. Dhruva he's offered his prayers, and he's heard directly from the Supreme Lord himself. And this is the final words that he's explaining, that he's sharing before before Maitreya continues his narration. And Dhruva will go home now. We're reading text 35, Canto 4, Chapter 9, text 35, if you'd like to pull it up. Please repeat after me. Swarajyam yachato modhyan Mano me bhikshito bata Ishwarat kshina punyena Falikaran ivadhanaha Swarajyam yachato modhyan Mano me bhikshito bata Ishwarat kshina punyena Falikaran ivadhanaha. Any others want to recite? Swarajyam yachato modhyan Mano me bhikshito bata Ishwarat kshina punyena Falikaran ivadhanaha. Swarajyam yachato modhyan Mano me bhikshito bata Ishwarat kshina punyena Falikaran ivadhanaha. Swarajyam yachato modhyan Mano me bhikshito bata Ishwarat kshina punyena Falikaran ivadhanaha. Thank you. Synonyms. Swarajyam, his devotional service. Yachata, from the Lord who was willing to offer. Modhyat, by foolishness. Manaha, material prosperity. Me, by me. Bhikshitaha, was asked for. Bata, alas. Ishwarat, from a great emperor. Kshina, was reduced. Punyena, whose pious activities. Falikaran, broken particles of husked rice. Iva, like. Adhanaha, a poor man. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Dhruva says, because of my state of complete foolishness and paucity of pious activities, although the Lord offered me his devotional service, I wanted name, fame, and prosperity. My case is just like that of the poor man, who, when he satisfied a great emperor who wanted to give him anything he might ask, out of ignorance asked only a few broken grains of husked rice. Purport. In this verse, the word swarajyam, which means complete independence, is very significant. A conditioned soul does not know what complete independence is. Complete independence means situation in one's own constitutional position. The real independence of a living entity, who is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is to remain always dependent on the Supreme Lord, just like a child who plays in complete independence, guided by his parents who watch over him. The independence of the conditioned soul does not mean to fight with the obstacles offered by Maya, but to surrender to Krishna. In the material world, everyone is trying to become completely independent simply by fighting against the obstacles offered by Maya. This is called the struggle for existence. Real independence is to be reinstated in the service of the Lord. Anyone who goes to the Vaikuntha planets or Goloka Vrindavan planet is freely offering Anyone who goes to the Vaikuntha planets or Goloka Vrindavan planet is freely offering his service to the Lord. That is complete independence. Just contrary to this is material overlordship, which we wrongly take to be independence. Many great political leaders have tried to establish independence, but due to such so-called independence, the people's dependence has only increased. The living entity cannot be happy trying to be independent in the material world. One has to surrender, therefore, unto the lotus feet of the Lord and engage in his original eternal service. Dhruva Maharaj regrets that he wanted material opulence and greater prosperity than that of his great-grandfather, Lord Brahma. His begging from the Lord was like a poor man's asking a great emperor for a few grains of broken rice. The conclusion is that anyone who is engaged in the loving service of the Lord should never ask for material prosperity from the Lord. The awarding of material prosperity simply depends on the stringent rules and regulations of the external energy. Pure devotees ask the Lord only for the privilege of serving him. This is our real independence. If we want anything else, it is a sign of our misfortune. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurun militam jena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Dhruva Maharaj is lamenting what he calls foolishness and lack of piety, because he asked from the Lord something very insignificant. He compares himself to an unintelligent person who has pleased a very wealthy, powerful king and yet asks for something of no value. Srila Prabhupada really highlights this point of independence. That's the main point that Srila Prabhupada is highlighting in his purport here. And he says that the real independence of the soul is to be dependent on Krishna. We know from Bhagavad Gita that we are all eternal parts and parcels of Krishna. Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Eternally, we're parts of Krishna. And When we forget this, we fall into the state of delusion in material life, and endlessly, unlimitedly, we have opportunities to attempt to be happy without Krishna. And it's a lot of effort, actually, we have to put in life after life after life to live separately from Krishna. We work so hard to not serve Krishna, don't we? Material life is a great struggle. Constantly we're struggling. New Yorkers may think themselves very modern and at the cutting edge of material opulence and enjoyment. That yes, we have nice, comfortable, heated buildings for the winter time. We have a penthouse apartment. We have a nice Tesla. But you have to pay so much money just to drive that Tesla through all the tolls in New York State, don't you? And you have to pay so much to keep your apartment heated. You have to pay so much in taxes to own an apartment in New York City. It's an immense struggle to keep our material life going, although we may have this whole dream, this delusion that we are so independent and I can do whatever I want. Srila Prabhupada gives the analogy here that the real dependence of the soul is to be like a child who is joyfully, freely playing under the supervision of the parent. When the child knows that its parents are watching and taking care, then the child doesn't have to do anything except just enjoy their life. They know that they have someone who's protecting them, who's maintaining them, who loves them, and who is perfectly capable of giving them everything they need. And for a child in a good family, this is their experience. They have everything they need. Think of how sweet that is, that situation. Just to be perfectly protected, to be perfectly cared for. Like the experience of the cat, there's also this analogy, or the kitten who is held by the jaws of its mother, right? The cat will grab the back of the kitten's neck and will carry it around. And the kitten is very peaceful, knowing that, yes, my mother is taking me exactly where I need to go. And those same jaws for the mouse are death. The same Krishna who for the devotee is Govindaji, so beautiful, so elegant, so handsome, so merciful, to be standing here with all of us, offering benediction, offering his association. That same Govinda, for those who don't want to be dependent on him, he comes in the form of death or time. Kalosmi. We are foolishly thinking in this world that we can be independent of Krishna. Even in the practice of devotional service, we may have an idea of ourselves as, yes, I am a devotee dependent on Krishna. But how much are we really taking shelter of Krishna? We may look the part externally, we may do the things externally that someone who is apparently surrendered does, but how much are we really surrendered to Krishna? We hear the 6 symptoms of surrender in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya is teaching Sanatana Goswami, yes? The 6 symptoms of surrender begin, the Sharanagati, with accepting the favorable and rejecting the unfavorable. Certainly in my life, I can name quite a few things that are unfavorable that I'm still doing year after year. Why do I not give these things up? Why do I not accept things that are favorable, even though I know I should do them? Why? One reason is because it's troublesome. Krishna explains that austerity in the mode of passion is to avoid doing things that are troublesome. It's painful, it's unpleasant to accept some things, like fasting on Janmashtami. It's not easy. Or to reject some habit which is not good for us. We may find pleasure in scrolling on social media without much aim, but it's unfavorable. And giving this up is a way to show dependence on Krishna, to show our surrender to Krishna. We should be cautious to not fall in the delusion that because I'm looking the part externally, that means I am surrendered. That means I am expressing my dependence on Krishna. Because we can read Srila Prabhupada's purports, we can hear Srila Prabhupada's classes, and Srila Prabhupada will say, Mudha, or even Dhruva here, he's calling himself, he says Maudhyan, the same root. Foolishness, a foolish person. We can hear these instructions from Prabhupada and think, yeah, those mudhas out there, right? Sometimes we might think like this. Yeah, those foolish people who don't surrender to Krishna. But wait a minute, Prabhupada is speaking to me. I heard that in the beginning, the devotees in 26 Second Avenue were hearing Srila Prabhupada talk about the Mayavadis, and they were thinking, this must be some kind of small deviant group somewhere in India, and they couldn't really understand why is Srila Prabhupada talking about this weird, this group of people that's not really related. And eventually it dawned on them, oh, Srila Prabhupada's talking about us. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Pastyatya Deshatarine. It's here also. Srila Prabhupada is speaking to us here that don't think you will be happy by trying to live a life independent of Krishna. Even in a temple setting like this, we can overly express our independence and get into trouble, isn't it? We can go on both sides. We can overly express dependence, and that's called what? What is it called if we're overly dependent? What do you say? Yeah, in Krishna consciousness, or in general also. To be parasitic. Okay. That's like, yeah, you're taking energy from others. Not only overly dependent, you're like toxically dependent. Yeah. I was thinking of another term. Blindly following. Yeah. Rupa Goswami also states in Nectar of Instruction that over-dependence on another's mercy is unfavorable for pure devotional service. Or blind following. This is over-dependence on another. We don't want to use our brain and we just go along with whatever everyone else is doing. I was just talking to a devotee recently who moved out of a brahmachari environment like this to go live separately, and was expressing that they were concerned about just blindly following what everyone else is doing. You know, we might call this sheepish mentality. There's one sheep herder, and there's many sheep. And the sheep just follow. And if they're not following properly, then there's the dog corralling them to go in the right direction. So we may fall into this trap of overdependence, turning off our intelligence and just doing what everyone else is doing. And it's a bit humorous or tragic that we see the great delusion of material life and we say, I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. They're just seeking temporary pleasures, trying to fit in, and no one is happy there. And then we join the Hare Krishna movement. And then again, we can fall into the trap of just doing what everyone else is doing. Of course, we're pretty safe. We're very safe. That even if you're stuck in blind following and you're chanting Hare Krishna and you're associating with devotees, you're going to be all right. Eventually, Krishna will help the sincere devotee realize and get out of that trap. But we should be cautious to not simply do what everyone else is doing. This is how great dangers happen in any organization, not just religious organizations. Cult-like tendencies can develop if we're not careful. I did this GBC college leadership training a few years ago, and one of the modules was on cults, because people criticize the devotees. My sister even, still to this day, she is thinking that my brother and I are joining a cult. My mom is actually starting to chant recently, and my sister is giving her some heat as well. So people criticize. The danger is, what I learned from this course, is that in seclusion, and especially in organizations that don't do what the rest of the world does, that have a very distinct type of culture, these are environments, also when there is a very one-sided leadership, these are factors that can lead to easily developing cult-like tendencies in a community. So we need to be very cautious, and if we're just going along with what everyone else is doing, there may be things, they may be slightly off, or there may be major things that are off. There's a shocking example back in the days, I think even Srila Prabhupada was still here. This was in New York when there was offering of meat, something like this. You all know? Temple leaders were offering meat. Yeah, okay. Hadai Pran is confirming. Thank you, yeah. One temple leader whose wife was doing this. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. And so it's an extreme example. And the reason I'm saying this is that, Prabhu, I appreciate you pointing that out. If we're going to share an extreme example in our own society and the history, we need to properly give the full context. But yes, it may be something extreme or it may be something small. And if we have a culture where we're not able to speak openly about things, then unhealthy tendencies can develop. Anuttama Prabhu, I've heard him speak about this topic, and I really appreciate when he does, that we should have a culture in which we're able to transparently talk about issues. Not that there's taboos. Yes, we need to have great caution, have great respect, and recognize, am I the right person to address this concern? Am I talking to the right person about this? Is it the right time and place? Am I doing it in the right mood? But if we do have a concern, then considering all these factors, we should use our intelligence, use the guidance that Supersoul is giving us to bring something up. Otherwise, yes, this blind following and not questioning can create issues. Now, on the other side, this was a discussion of over-dependence. And there is a degree of healthy dependence. We are totally dependent on Krishna's mercy, and especially we receive Krishna's mercy through the spiritual master. Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado. We are dependent, and if we get into a mood of wanting to make all of our own decisions, of thinking that we can progress in spiritual life on our own strength, with our own intelligence, this is also unfavorable. Rupa Goswami says that niyamagraha and niyamagraha are unfavorable. Overly following the rules and the externals just for the sake of following them, that's the blind following side. And then whimsically giving them up. To find this balance is an art. It requires guidance and it requires sensitivity to the guidance that Supersoul is giving us from within. Now, this whole discussion has been about within the realm of devotional service, we need to be cautious about these extremes of dependence and independence. Then in the second paragraph, Srila Prabhupada points out the aspect of asking the Lord for something less than the ultimate. He says that pure devotees ask the Lord only for the privilege of serving Him. Just the way Srila Prabhupada writes the sentence, it's a privilege to serve Krishna. And this is our real independence, is to ask the Lord for service. It goes on both sides. We have the word in the first line, yachato, which Prabhupada says means from the Lord who was willing to offer. So like icha, yatechasi tatakuru. At the end of Gita, Krishna says, now, my dear Arjuna, you choose whatever you like to do. I give you the freedom to choose. And Krishna, from his side, is willingly giving the opportunity for us to serve him. He is willingly allowing us to be with him, to come back to Goloka Vrindavan with him. Not only is he willing, but he's anxious to have us back with him in Goloka Vrindavan. So this is why Srila Prabhupada says if we want anything else than to serve Krishna purely, this is our misfortune. And one solution is in Srila Prabhupada's sentence here, is that it's a privilege to serve Krishna. If we develop this attitude that everything that I am doing in the realm of Krishna consciousness is my fortune. It is a great blessing to be able to do anything in Krishna consciousness. Imagine what that mood would be like, to deeply imbibe this understanding that even to clean the bathrooms in Radha Govinda's temple is the greatest fortune. And in fact, demigods would be pleased to come down and take birth in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. And just be able to be part of this movement by doing some menial service like this. To serve prasadam to the devotees, what a great privilege. You know who else likes to serve prasadam to devotees? Lord Chaitanya himself. You read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya relishes the opportunity to serve prasadam to all of the Vaishnavas. And following in his footsteps, I was struck in New Vrindavan just last fall. There was a leadership conference and His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu was there. And there was a banquet dinner one night at the Palace of Gold. And here I was, all right, banquet dinner, excited for the opportunity to enjoy my senses transcendentally. And Vaisheshika Prabhu, one of the most senior devotees in our worldwide society, doing immense, tremendous service to please Srila Prabhupada with book distribution and so many other services. He was not only serving prasadam, but with gusto. Vaisheshika Prabhu, he was walking very fast around the room because I'm guessing someone requested water or someone requested some specific preparation. So Vaisheshika Prabhu was just jetting across the room to serve the Vaishnavas with a big smile on his face. That impression struck me greatly. Why was he doing this? Because it's a privilege to do a devotional service. It's our greatest fortune. Any tiny way that we can be connected with the service of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan mission is our greatest fortune and our privilege. Like right now, you all are packing up books in these little bags. This is an indirect way to distribute books. The devotees who are in the kitchen, I saw Kana Gopal Prabhu in the kitchen this morning cooking breakfast. He'll feed all of the devotees who will go out and distribute the holy names and distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. That is a service to the Sankirtan mission, which is such a great privilege. And the more we can develop this attitude, the less we will expect, the less we will feel entitled. This is the dangerous side, is to be entitled versus to feel privileged. To be entitled is to think, I deserve a certain level of comfort. I deserve a certain level of treatment from others. I deserve to be the Bhagavatam class speaker. I deserve to be in a leadership role. I deserve so many things. And Krishna is not pleased with this attitude. To be entitled is not pleasing. But did you know, Lord Brahma says that there is something we can feel entitled for. What is that? Yes? To be a servant of Krishna, yeah. And more specifically, this is the famous verse, Tatenu kampam susamikshamano, bhunjanam evadmakritam vipakam, hridvagvapur bir vididhan namaste, jiveta yomukti pade sadayabak. That one who lives in this way becomes a rightful heir to the kingdom of God. And what is the way in which we have to live? Is to live in a way that is full of gratitude and this feeling of being privileged. Knowing that whatever I have done in the past foolishly is the reason that I'm suffering now. It's not because of anyone else. It's because of my own self. How does it go? Anyway, the verse says, because of one's own previous activities, atmakritam, yes. And while having this understanding, going on with our service to Krishna in all ways, not just with our body, but also with our words and our mind, offering our obeisances, offering our service to Krishna. living in such a way, one becomes the rightful heir. One becomes entitled, in a sense, with the proper mood. One becomes so fortunate that Brahma says they will be blessed by returning to Krishna. So I'll wrap up here and request you all to share thoughts, insights, and questions. After reading this verse from Dhruva Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada's commentary, we can reflect on the danger of overly following what everyone else is doing, making sure that we remain independently thoughtful, as Srila Prabhupada wanted us to do, while simultaneously, with all respect and submission, taking shelter and seeing ourselves, feeling ourselves as dependent on Srila Prabhupada, on Radha Govinda, on our spiritual masters, on all of the Vaishnavas around us. And recognize that the mood to seek in devotional service is that of gratitude, is that of not expecting, as opposed to an entitled mood that I deserve a certain standard of comfort in my life, that actually I deserve nothing, and anything that I get is my great fortune. Our lives will be so sweet if we can develop this mood. This trinadapi sunichena, level humility. I deserve nothing. I'm just a little insignificant, trying to be devotee, and I'm so grateful. Even if I can be born as an insect in the home of a Vaishnava, that would be my greatest fortune. If I can just sleep on the floor in Radha Govinda's temple and clean the bathrooms every day, that would be my greatest fortune. Just imagine if we could develop this type of attitude. How happy would our lives be, and how happy would all of the devotees be around us? So thank you all for allowing me. Hidai Pran Prabhu is meant to speak this morning, and thank you for the opportunity. I was hoping to hear you speak, but you skillfully evaded. No, thank you, Prabhu. And now I'd love to hear some thoughts from you all. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for your wonderful explanation of this verse and bringing this light on this sentence that devotional service is a privilege when it is performed in a proper mood. My question in this regard also is like sometimes after staying in the movement for some years, we do get some post position and we do get some facilities provided. And during that time, devotional service, and we know we have been doing every year, every day, we have been going on, attending morning program, Guru Puja, Bhagavatam class, and everything like that. And then after some years, getting these things, there is always a lack of enthusiasm and lack of thinking that it's a privilege, rather than we think it's our ongoing thing. Let me just be taking part. Or sometimes it may feel like a burden also because of our not in proper modes or previous conditionings. So how do we correct this? How do we correct this consciousness?
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. What's your name, Prabhu?
Shri Gopal Prandas.
Shri Gopal Pran Prabhu, thank you. So just being around in the community of devotees, we do the same things again and again. We chant the same mantra every day. We do the same prayers every morning. We celebrate the same festivals. We hear the same pastimes again and again. And it can become, we can take it as dry. We can just go about it kind of mechanically. And if we get some sort of position, or actually I'll say, even if we don't get any formal position, just sticking around after some time more and more you get respect, because in the Vaishnava community there's a culture of respecting seniors. So how do we avoid the danger of falling into complacency and comfort? What comes to mind is to keep ourselves in cutting edge type of association of devotees who we can be totally honest with about these issues and who have that mood. There's a really nice verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita describing the type of association that we should seek. Srimad Bhagavatartanam, how does it go? You all know? Srimad Bhagavatartanam, Swaja Rasikai Saha, we should relish Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of those who relish it. Snigdhe, there should be affection in the relationship, and Parevaram, they should be more advanced than ourselves. So one meditation is the devotees that I'm really intimately associating with, is there affection? Are they more advanced than myself? Am I with devotees who are really inspiring me? And this doesn't mean that we disrespect devotees who are junior in certain ways to us, but we should really seek that association that keeps us on the cutting edge. And in that way we can stay out of complacency. And then one other quick thought is that Gauranga Darshan Prabhu mentioned this in a class recently that I heard. He said that intrinsic in the definition of sadhana bhakti, of being a sadhaka, it means sometimes we're enthused and sometimes we're not. So to recognize this reality is helpful. And one day, when we reach perfection, then we'll have consistent enthusiasm, always. But as long as I'm a sadhaka, that means sometimes enthusiastic, sometimes not, and we simply have to go on with the service, understanding that the medicine will cure the disease. So association and understanding the situation of myself as a sadhaka. Yeah. Thank you for your thoughtful question, Shri Gopal Pran Prabhu. Yes, Hadai Pran Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the class. Thank you for giving the class much better than I could have ever given. I just had one comment and one kind of comment/question. The comment of this verse that you quoted from Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 8 of Brahma's prayers. In the first paragraph of that purport, Prabhupada says, or Srila Prabhupada's disciples say, that one, just like a father, like a son just has to stay alive in Krishna consciousness to engage the inheritance of the father. Once the duty of a disciple is to stay alive in Krishna consciousness, and then he will get the mercy of the Lord. And so, you're like, we have many things to be proud about, but and we often are deluded by pride. But if we're just proud that we get to Jivera Swarupohe Krishna Nityadas, if we identify we're a servant of Krishna, that's very nice. So thank you for that point. And the point about cultish mentality and cults in that sense, I was just thinking that many of the great religions today that we see, like Christianity, Islam, Judaism, they all started as cults, as kind of like, because they all started with a different way of thinking. And actually early Christians were stoned for thinking what they were thinking, and now it just kind of looks odd because we're the minority. But I think in terms of the whole grand scheme of things, there's a lot of things in religion that make us similar because we're all getting devotion to God. But there are also some things that aren't so that makes us individual. Because why did we choose this process over any other process? So how do we somehow not become, quote, culty by emphasizing the things that make us similar, but also keep true to what makes us as our individual spiritual practice? You get my point?
So we're all doing the same things, at least many things we do are the same externally.
Like we pray to God, we follow some regulation. I think that's common in all religions. But there's some things that make us very special. Like Christians have things that make them special. Hare Krishnas have things that make them special.
Okay, so how can the Hare Krishna movement maintain its distinct identity and not just wash away in these broad-minded statements that we get from our Siddhanta? Yes, this is a question that will continue to be asked and reflected on for millennia because it's the question of tradition versus innovation. One perspective that I personally find inspiring and accommodates for both of these sides that you're bringing up is that the 4 regulative principles and chanting 16 rounds of Hare Krishna is extremely distinct from what anyone else in the world does, even religious people. How many religious organizations require such a high level of life of purity? What to speak of adding on top of that 2 hours of daily meditation? So this life of purity, and specifically the chanting of the names of God, the understanding that we have of the Sankirtan movement as the Yuga Dharma, this knowledge will spread around the world. Lord Chaitanya's golden age is rising. And even in a world where all religious organizations are chanting the names of God, they're participating in the Sankirtan movement, we have the great fortune that Lord Chaitanya has revealed to us the most confidential understanding of who is Bhagavan, who is God, Radha and Govinda, eternally, Radha Gopinath. We have the understanding of the conjugal rasa, of the friendly rasa, the parental rasa, which is far beyond the conception of most religions of the world today. So in these ways, we can remain distinct and yet also have respectful interfaith dialogues and promote spreading of the Sankirtan in its many forms as Lord Chaitanya's golden age expands. So, yeah, especially this point. Well, actually, here's what I'll say just to conclude is that what I'm emphasizing and what I'm personally inspired to see is that the externals aren't so essential. The form of how the Hare Krishna movement looks currently already is expanding widely, and there's so much diversity. And we will need to expand our mind, our understanding of what the Sankirtan movement is, and within the greater Sankirtan movement, what is the Gaudiya Vaishnava movement on planet Earth, and that there will be many forms, and we should have great respect for all, and yet we have our own Sangha within that movement. Even in the spiritual world, there are different camps of devotees who have different moods. I'm grateful to share some reflections on this insightful question, Prabhu. Does anyone else have any reflections? It's a very big topic. Or, yes, Prabhu. Sorry? Doctrine and innovation. A doctrine is like a set of beliefs. So doctrine implies that it's just an acceptance of a set of beliefs without actually living and realizing and understanding them. Is that the Yeah, so that's all right. Like I was saying, we have a certain doctrine of what Lord Chaitanya has given us about the highest understanding of God. So. If the way you're defining a doctrine as a set of beliefs, then no, a doctrine doesn't define a cult. It's blindly, yeah. I mean, from what I understand, a cult is kind of blindly following. Anyway, it's a nice discussion. We can talk about it a little more. I'm happy to talk about it a little more after. I wanted to make sure that our friend here also can share a thought before we close off. So thank you for that.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna, I had a question. Maybe I'll ask later. Shouldn't be a problem. I'll ask the question personally.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you all so much for this opportunity. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada